Hey, this is Greg at Best Choice Trailers. Today I'm going to take you for a walk around a Trac 7x14, 14,000 pound telescopic hoist dump trailer. Trailers offered in 12 and 14 foot lengths. Primarily the 12 foot we do in a 12,000 pound, the 14 in a 14,000 pound. Also available in a gooseneck. It's not available in a 16 foot model. So I'll take you for a walk around the trailer, show you some of the features that we like. First and foremost, the biggest primary difference between this and the other Trac dump trailer models in the 14 foot is mainly the hoist. Now, along with the hoist, there are a few structural differences that they do to the trailer. I'll try and show you some of those as we walk around. So everything on the trailer other than the hoist is stock. So as I point them out, they'll all be standard features. Up front, they do a 2 5/16 cast adjustable coupler. If you're not familiar, cast a little heavier than stamp. These are a little different than some couplers in that back is closed, forward is open. It's a 6-hole adjustable. Do a nice reinforcement gusset. Trac does a 6-inch tube tongue. It's a pretty well full wrap tongue, and then they do a 6-inch tube mainframe. Jack is a 7,000 pound drop leg jack. Pretty standard in the industry. It's got a greaser top line handle. It is a bolt-on jack, so if you need to replace it, it's easy to do so. It is a sealed harness. They do give you a plug there up front that you can put it so it's not in the dirt. If you're not familiar with the drop leg jack, you'd simply pull a pin, leg drops down to the ground, and then the top line jack handle adjusts the inner leg. Got a lot of adjustment, no need for carrying around wood blocks. Of course, standard safety chains. They put a 3/8 grade chain on there, a little bit more substantial than we sometimes see. Trac does powder coat the trailer. The powder coating they put on, a lot of times we hear the trailer's powder coated. Some people seem to like it, don't. I would say more often than not, in my experience, it really comes down to the prep. Trac does a pretty phenomenal prep. They store their steel inside. From the steel I've seen go into the plant, it's been in Conestoga wagon trailers. They do a blast, a steel grit blast on the final assembled product, not on steel that makes up the product. So it is the final product's blasted, not the components that go in. That's important because when manufacturers do that, some components go unblasted, the fab parts and whatnot. It is a steel grit blast. It's phosphate washed as you would typically see, and then there's a sealer that goes on, like a zinc chromate type sealer that goes on after the phosphate wash. That really is one of the big primary differences that we see between their product and a lot of the others in the market. So, spent a long time telling you about powder coat, but it's important because not all powder coats are created equal, so to speak. Bullet LED lights are standard. Trac, in the toolbox, you're going to notice a little bit bigger reservoir. That's because this is a power up, power down unit. One way to tell, power up, gravity down. You can tell it's a gravity because the reservoir is much bigger. If it was a power unit, you'd have about a 3-quart reservoir. This one here probably is about an 8-quart. That's because in this particular system, you are sending hydraulic fluid out through that whole system, and then on the gravity down, it needs a place to put it. Where on a power up, power down dual ram, your rams are your reservoir to some degree. You can also tell that it's power up, gravity down. Otherwise, on a dual ram, it'd have 2 coils here. Deca Deep Cycle Marine battery. It's a Group 24. This number here is pretty important to 140 minutes. It means it's a 140 amp hour. Some Group 24s are only 100 amp hour. This is what they would refer to generally as a high capacity Group 24. You can also tell it's got charge lines running through the 7-pin harness. That's what the green and white wire would be for. So it does charge off your truck. Does have a 110 volt charger. This, like powder coat, can be deceiving. We've seen some 2 amp hour chargers that we've had problems with. This Genius IQ seems to be one of the better chargers out there. We've had a few that we have had problems with different manufacturers, and some that we picked up for resale. But again, this one here seems like a pretty high quality 110 volt charger. You'd simply pop that off, plug your cord in, and go. You do have a prop on the toolbox. It is a lockable box, of course. Keys behind the lock there. So because this is a power up, gravity down, Trac does put a safety on that you can chain it. If you were loading something heavy at the back and you wanted some extra peace of mind, You'd simply use the chain there. Short Trac does do a tool tray underneath the bed. It goes the width of the trailer, so it's going to be about 6.5 feet. The other direction, you're going to get about 2 foot or so, and then it's about 5-6 inches deep. As with all Short Trac trailers, they do a pretty top-notch job with their wiring. Everything's grommeted, sealed, ran in frame. You can tell the upper side there, pretty quality job with their wiring. Even coming out of the back of the toolbox, it's all grommeted up. On the brake assemblies there, you'll see it's a molded sealed harness. Again, something we see it's a little bit different than some. Standard tires and axles would be a 7,000 pound. It's got the new forward adjusting brakes. It's got the easy lube hubs. You can see there. You can self-service your axle bearings. 235/80 R16 10-ply radial tire. Short Trac does do the slipper spring suspension. You'll see this more often than not on 14K trailers, although you do still see some eye to eye. One thing that is a little bit different, they take and put a wet bolt kit, they would refer to. Basically, it's a fancy word for a grease zert on the slipper spring. Just makes it a little bit more durable. So one thing that Short Trac does on the telescopic that is not on the dual ram, the dual ram would have a header that would go across about there, and your dual pistons would push from, and then it would be supported with a header and whatnot on the bed frame. So on the telescopic, your push points are going to be totally different. You're going to push from the front, which naturally is going to give you way more leverage than your other hoist types, which is why the telescopic is said to be all but 100% efficient. Your dual rams, which are going to mount basically at the midpoint of the fender, and they're going to push from that area, they're about 40% efficient, and your scissors are rated to about 60% efficiency. A scissor, if you're familiar, mounts like a dual ram. It mounts horizontal, trying to get the load to go vertical. In and of itself, that's pretty inefficient. Scissors are rated to about 60% efficiency. So again, one of your major benefits to the telescopic is simply going to be leverage. A second one would be, of course, it's vertical, trying to go vertical, which naturally is a major obstacle. Having a power up, gravity down is also going to save a little bit of power consumption on the way down. Yet another reason why telescopic is, well, a few things. One, it's going to get you more dump cycles out of a battery charge because it's more efficient. But there's a number of reasons. If you're a commercial user, sometimes a power up, gravity down can be beneficial. You wouldn't get to that point where on a power up, power down, you could have a dead battery, and I shouldn't say could, this happens on a regular basis. It will basically open up the solenoid but not turn the motor, so it'll dump all that fluid back into the toolbox, where on a gravity down you wouldn't have that instance. So again, telescopic hoist, framed out a little bit different. Let me show you specifically. So instead of the header that you normally see here, Short Trac takes and puts a piece of plate over the axle area. Naturally, I'm not an engineer, but I assume that's because that's where your heaviest load bearing placement is going to be on this trailer. A couple other things that they do that we like, they take and put a grease zert on your pivot point. They cap the end of the tube frame so that there's no chance or minimal chance of it ever crushing, even under an extreme use. They do double pass welds on some of the critical areas like your rear hinge. Notice little details. They take and put a piece of angle at the back side of your spring hanger there for extra support. All little details we like. Short Trac tends to be a pretty thoroughly engineered trailer. Also do the double broke fenders for extra strength. This integrated keyway in the sidewall gives a lot of strength to the trailer. Notice a little detail. Some other ones have mimicked this, but most of them are not integrated. They're not fabbed into the steel. This is actually press broke in, not a piece that's welded on the outside. A lot cleaner. You're not going to get rust, acid rain, etc. down through there. Other little details we like on the Short Trac, things that I picked up, they take and do almost a double height stake pocket. Notice it's also mounted right below the rolled edge. That way if somebody's banging around with a bobcat bucket or whatnot, it should reduce the amount that it would bend the top rail down. They also do a real nice spare tire mount. Lots of little details. I can't get close enough to it, but they have 4 bead of weld, 2 on each side, and then they also take the time to weld the inside. Again, little details they do. If you look at the bulkhead and you're familiar with short track trailers, you'll notice it's straight. That's because of the telescopic hoist. The other ones flare out. Telescopic got to be mounted a little bit different. The back side, it's a combo spreader gate, cam bar lock. You simply take your chains, tie around the side. One nice thing about the front and rear bulkhead would be it puts the lights where you can actually see them. They're not down low. Little detail that we like. Lots of the little stuff Short Track does. They put an adjuster at the edges. That way your doors are generally always going to be straight across the back. Of course, undermount ramps. I'll show you another little detail we like on those. We've seen some in the industry use 1/4-inch plate at the end. These guys use 1/2-inch plate. We've seen 1/4-inch plate bend over time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does over extended use. 1/2-inch plate I have never had a problem with. They also do the tube retainers. And again, folks, those are undermount ramps. They also use a 4-inch cross member under the bed. I would say industry standard, more often than not, we see a 3-inch cross member. Again, another little difference that we see. On their wiring, whenever it comes out of frame, again, they're pretty fussy about the grommeting. Here they silicone where the trailer comes out. Of course, they put a fender prop on the fender as well. Going back to the trailer, they've got rope rings that you can tie a bungee cord off to if you go with an optional tarp kit. 2-foot high sides. More often than not, we see this in the industry. Some cut them down to a 20-inch. This gives you a little bit extra capacity. On a 14-foot dump like this, you're going to get about 6.9 yards. 6.9 or 7.9. D-rings in the corners. You got 4 corners, and then they give you 1 up front you can use with a come-along. It does have a 10-gauge floor. Again, that's pretty well an industry standard. Trailer's going to dump a little bit over a 45-degree angle. Shouldn't have any problem getting things off at that angle. Trailer like this is going to weigh in just under 4,000 empty. It is a 14,000 GVW. It's going to give you about 10,000 pound legal payload plus your tongue weight. Tongue weight's going to average generally around 15% or 2,000 pounds. If you have any questions on this or any of our other trailers, give us a ring, 717-220-4220, or visit us on the web at bestchoicetrailers.com.